Hello and welcome to New Frontiers on CCTV International. I'm Ji Xiaojun in Beijing. In our program today, we're continuing with our major series about Chinese civilization. 1,500 years ago, in the wake of the demise of the Qing and Han dynasties, China was ruled by the Wei and Jin dynasties. Now, this was an era of great social transformation and also a cultural golden age. Under the influence of Taoist philosophy, many extraordinary artists emerged. Notably, a major breakthrough was seen in Chinese traditional painting. Artists began to stress the spirit of landscapes and objects in their work rather than the actual form.
The second tremendous social change after the Spring and Autumn period and the Warring States period in Chinese history took place during a time when China was under the rule of the Wei and Jin dynasties and the Northern and Southern dynasties. At this time, ethnic groups in North China merged on a large scale, and much of the culture of the Central Plains was taken to the south by immigrants. For a period of 400 years after the Spring and Autumn and Warring States periods, the Chinese created a rich legacy for future generations. It was an era of great advance in philosophy and the arts. In the arts in particular, there were breakthroughs in every field. This was also an era that made it possible for the emergence of many people of great talent. During the 400 years from the end of the Han dynasty to the Wei and Jin dynasties, all forms of Chinese art reached a new peak and entered a new realm of aestheticism, as if by some great miracle. Chinese scholars of the time had a burning passion for impractical philosophical theories. They spent much of their time visiting natural sites, discussing philosophical theories, drinking wine, and composing prose poems. And in the process, they unexpectedly achieved breakthroughs in artistic creation.
当时在艺术上呢，就是以自然为最高的标准，就是人能够从自然当中得到的那种启发，无论是内在的还是外在的，都是讲究非常美、非常绚丽、非常灿烂。那内在的精神，它很灵动，很有这种我们讲自然的这种变化。 这种审美呢，就是我们知道当时包括这个山水诗啊，这个很多山水画啊，它都非常强调这种传神，都强调它的一种流畅，强调它的这种自然的这种意味。
Chinese landscape paintings are not required to present a mountain or a river in its true form. Instead, the painter draws a picture of a scenic spot on the basis of the many scenic spots he has visited. During the Wei and Jin dynasties, Chinese painters began to rise from a level that had them depicting real subjects to one where they expressed their inner thoughts. They placed greater stress on freehand brushwork than they did on faithful representation. They emphasized conveying the spirit rather than depicting actual form. The creation of landscape paintings reached a new peak during the time China was under the rule of the Five Dynasties and the two Song Dynasties. Painters living in this time depicted the mountains of the north and the long stretches of exquisite natural scenery in the south. The most creative brushwork in landscape painting during the Song Dynasty is represented by Mi Fu and his son Mi Youran. Their paintings are jointly known as Cloud-Veiled Mountains. Mi Fu was a renowned calligrapher who had a profound understanding of the abstract beauty of brushwork. He once said, "Painters of landscapes have been very much the same. Very few of them have broken away from the established rules." Mi Fu adopted a new approach to ink wash painting, with emphasis placed on graceful rhythms instead of accurate representation of form. Chinese scholars in the Yuan dynasty worshipped the Wei Jin time when the learning of mystery prevailed. These Yuan dynasty scholars wanted to lead the kind of close to nature and leisurely lives the Wei Jin scholars had led, and so they followed the example of the great philosopher and hermit Lao Tzu and went to great efforts to assimilate the artistic elements of the Wei Jin time. The composition and brushwork of their landscape paintings reached a state in which the feeling of real objects is found in blank areas, and blank areas give the feeling of the presence of real objects. They aimed to integrate nature with individual personality. Artists living in the Wei and Jin dynasties pursued a natural style. They created an Oriental art ideology and developed aesthetic concepts such as spiritual rhythm and spiritual form.
近代是一个非常特殊的时期，这个时期的社会非常的动荡，但是中华文明呢，似乎在这里走到了一个他自己的一个高峰。以前积聚的一些思想、感觉，还有艺术上的成就、文化上的成就，在这里都好像汇聚成一个灿烂之点。它形成了中国文化的某些基调。 精神上的某些主干，比如说潇洒旷达，关注自己内心的生活，对某些境界的无限的向往，这些等等，都影响到后世的发展，整个后代的精神的生活。
Another highlight of this cultural golden age was grotto art, which embraced wall painting, stone sculpting, and carving. Grotto art flourished under the growing influence of a new religion in China, Buddhism.
When the Silk Road opened during the Han Dynasty, Chinese silk and other goods began to be conveyed on the backs of camels through the immense desert to Central Asia and further on to Rome. Along this great trade route, a variety of civilizations converged and fused. During the Jin dynasty, Buddhist monks from the western regions began to travel to central China, bringing with them Buddhist scriptures and the skills needed to build stone grottos. Buddhist grotto carvings appeared first in Xinjiang, then northwest China, the Central Plain, and finally in areas south of the Yangtze River. One day at dusk in the year AD 366, a Buddhist monk named Le Zun arrived in Dunhuang. When he looked up Mingsha Hill, he saw the gorgeous rays of light bouncing off a cliff of the hill, and it seemed in the dazzling light that thousands of images of the Buddha were greeting him. The reflection of that sunset glow on Sanwei Hill led to the construction of China's largest group of grottos, and they would become the greatest treasure house in the history of Chinese civilization. At Dunhuang, monk Le Zun decided to cut short his westbound tour, and he set about hiring men to dig a grotto in a sheer cliff on Mingsha Hill and carve Buddhist statues. The main characteristic of the Mogao grottos is the well-planned combination of buildings, statues and wall paintings. The Mogao murals feature concise forms, unrestrained lines and bold colours. The flying lines and bold images never fail to astound those who behold them. From the depiction of the heavenly kingdom, we can see that painters from northwest China worked with great passion and with minds unrestrained by conventional rules. They displayed in the paintings the gallant spirit of the people of the far northwest. Since ancient times, it has been said of Chinese artistic styles that those in the north are gallant, while those in the south are exquisite. Geographically, China can be divided into two large regions, with the Qinling Mountains and the Huaihe River as the demarcation line, and these two regions are very different in terms of topography, climate, and natural environment. During the Wei and Jin dynasties, scholars and artists developed the notion of gallant north and exquisite south to the extreme. This concept was enhanced to the point where it brought about a fusion of different ethnic groups on a scale unique in Chinese history. At the fall of the former Qin dynasty in the year AD 384, Tuo Bagui, the chieftain of the Xianbei tribe, saw his opportunity and established the Wei dynasty in present-day Inner Mongolia. In the year AD 398, Tuo Bagui moved his capital to Pingchang, present-day Datong in Shanxi province. In the following year, he declared himself emperor. His regime is called by historians the Northern Wei dynasty. In the winter of 2003, archaeologists working in the northern part of Datong city uncovered the remains of buildings from the Northern Wei dynasty, and these buildings provided important evidence for the charting of the history of the Northern Wei. After the Northern Wei Empire unified North China, after some time its emperor came to understand the importance of civil administration. He began to give government posts to scholars of the Han ethnic group, China's majority ethnic group, and adopt the more advanced Han culture and system of rituals. Gradually, the emperor guided his regime into feudal society. During the Northern Wei dynasty, more than 1 million ethnic minority people integrated themselves with the majority Han people, and the gallant nomadic civilization from the grasslands injected stamina into the already vigorous culture of the Central Plain. Thus, the culture of the Central Plain took on a new outlook with a strong individual character. The most important manifestation of the cultural characteristic particular to the ethnic groups of North China is the region's large number of Buddhist grotto carvings. During the 100 years in which construction of the Mogao grottos was underway, people living in the Hexi area also built grottos. In Gansu province, local people built the Yulin grottos at Wanfo Gorge, the Majishan grottos at Tianshui, the Tiantishan grottos at Wuwei, the Bingling Temple grottos in Yongjing County, and the Ma-Ti Temple grottos in Jiangye. Yet all these grottos, including those in Mogao, were not the finest produced during that period of Chinese history. Shortly after these grottos were completed, far away in the Hedong area, the emperor of the Northern Wei dynasty was building the even grander Yungang grottos, incomparable to any grottos that were already in existence, and finer than any that would follow. In his book Annotations on the Classic of Water, Li Daoyuan described the scene. Workers cut open the stone mountainside and carved gigantic statues. Rare Buddhist scriptures were brought there. Halls were built on the mountain and by the waterside. Buddhist temples rose here and there in the mist. The Yungang grottos were built on the northern side of Wuzhou Hill on the outskirts of Datong in Shanxi province. Around the hill was a broad stretch of land with beautiful scenery. Completing this gigantic project almost exhausted all the resources of the imperial court of the Northern Wei dynasty. According to historical records, the empire conscripted several tens of thousands of men to work on it, and every day the workers consumed 750,000 kilograms of grain and salt and 250 kilograms of chili peppers. Construction of the Tanyao grottos, the most representative of the Yungang grottos, continued day and night for more than 30 years. All the statues in these 5 grottos are extraordinarily tall and extremely large. The tallest, enshrined in cave number 19, is 17 meters high. The shortest statue in cave number 16 is still an impressive 13.5 meters high. The stately and mysterious bearing of these statues of Buddha was depicted using carving techniques known as large plain areas on a huge statue and straight and even carving lines. These bold and majestic statues, carved with gentle and concise lines, became the aesthetic models for work undertaken in the early stage of the construction of the Yungang grottos. The mighty statues of Buddha represented the great ambitions of the emperor, whose forefathers were from the nomadic tribe of the Xianbei in North China. Lu Xun, the famous writer of modern China, compared the giant statues to the Great Wall, and he further eulogized them as towering buildings in the sandstorm and solid and great art.
北魏宣卑民族在佛教造像上呈现出来的审美风格，它是充分地体现了这个民族的特点。把印度的佛教造像的风格、艺术特点传进来了以后，他要求工匠在这个上面融进这个民族的审美特点。因此，在宣卑早期云冈石窟造像当中，它体现出这个民族的审美特性，伟岸、高大、壮崇是它在造佛像当中的一个基本要求。因此，在昙曜五窟表现出来的佛教造型，满足了这个民族的审美特点和它的要求。
Buddhism reached a peak of popularity during the Northern Wei dynasty around the 5th century. The practice became widespread despite the tremendous cost of erecting Buddhist statues and creating grottos. Besides the Yungang grottos, the famous Longmen grottos in Henan province also date from the period of Northern Wei.
Toward the end of the 5th century, a new king ascended the throne of the Northern Wei dynasty. His name was Tuo Ba Hong, or Emperor Xiaowen, and at the time he was just a boy. Under his reign, the regime began to promote reform in order to accelerate economic and cultural development. In the year AD 494, the imperial court moved its capital from Pingchang to Luoyang, and at the new capital began construction of the Longmen grottos. The project consumed nearly half of the empire's annual revenue, and it took 30 years to complete. The main part of the grottos is the 3 Northern Wei caves, Guyang, Binyang, and Lianhua. Today, we have no idea if the Longmen grottos and the Yungang grottos were built by the same workers, but minute changes are discernible in the appearance of the Buddha statues between the two places. The Longmen grottos were the result of the great effort of Emperor Xiaowen of the Northern Wei dynasty to assimilate the culture and lifestyle of the majority Han people, and so the Buddhist statues at Longmen bear many traces of Han culture. They were the result of integrating the Buddhist artistic style of India with elements of Chinese art which emphasized likeness and form. The carvers of these Buddhist statues must have used much of their energy thinking about the facial expression to be depicted. The facial expression had to be solemn and dignified so that they would generate sincere respect from pilgrims, yet it was not to be chilly and unapproachable. Buddhist statues built after the Northern Wei dynasty moved its capital to Luoyang take on a little of the air of the secular world. They are dressed in the loose garments of Han scholars, their faces are less solemn, and they smile. In short, they are more like people from real life. The benefits of the fusion of cultures from the northern part of China with that of the south were fully displayed during the Tang dynasty. The Buddhist statues carved during this period for Fengshan Temple at Longmen are the best among the Buddhist statues of the Longmen grottos. The principal statue is in a sitting posture. Its head is 4 meters high, its ears 1.9 meters long, its hair curved, and its brows high and long. The statue casts its eyes towards somewhere ahead and down, while its lips show a faint smile. It has both masculine strength and gentle feminine beauty. This statue has been acclaimed as a perfect combination of human being with divine spirit. One afternoon during the reign of Emperor Qianlong of the Qing dynasty, calligrapher Huang Yi came to the Longmen grottos. When he entered Guyang Cave to look at the majestic statues, he noticed chiseled on the wall beside one of the statues some Chinese characters. He realized that what he was looking at was a note revealing who had built the statue and when. Such notes can often be found in tiny, inconspicuous spots, and from them we can imagine how the craftsmen who built the statues must have felt after long days of hard work. They chiseled a few words next to a statue to express their happiness at what had been accomplished. Huang Yi felt amazed by these words, as they had been carved using the technique known as straight knifing. Chinese characters carved with this technique have neat strokes with sharp angles and bear clear traces of the chisel, but this was a technique not favoured or used by scholars. Characters chiseled out in this way look natural and unsophisticated, revealing a lively intelligence and an inner strength in their seemingly clumsy and wild appearance. Wang Yi requested that rubbings be made of these notes, and he had them brought together in an album under the title 12 Calligraphic Pieces from Long Men. This album, known as the Wei-style tablet inscriptions, is known as one of the best calligraphic works in China. The brushwork of Wang Shizhi is exquisite and powerful, but the Wei tablet inscription style injects a gallant and unsophisticated air into Wang Shizhi's style. It provides a new arena for the development of Chinese calligraphy. A new trend, learning from the Wei-style tablet inscriptions, began a wave of calligraphic creativity across the country.
Wei 碑和王羲之代表的铁血是中国书法史上的两座高峰。他们之所以同时出现，是因为魏晋时期是一个隔江而治的时代，所以呢，北边是一些少数民族，他们一种大漠，苍凉，而且是巨石磨牙的方式，写出了这种震撼人心的。尽管是文字不周、文质不雅，形式也不是那么像文人欣赏的那么秀丽。但是它代表了一种雄强的漠北的那种风尚。
The stone carvers of the Northern Wei dynasty could never have expected that the few characters they chiseled on a wall would one day be regarded as classic works of calligraphy, comparable to those written by sage calligrapher Wang Shizhi. The calligraphic style of the Eastern Jin dynasty and the Wei-style tablet inscriptions represent two high peaks in the history of Chinese calligraphy. This was an era of ideological opening up and academic reform, an era in which the majority Han people allied themselves with the ethnic minorities of the north to develop the broad and fertile land of North China. The first major social transformation in Chinese history took place during the Spring and Autumn period and the Warring States period. These periods produced many famous scholars and philosophers and 100 schools of thought. They laid a solid foundation for the birth of the Qin and Han empires. The second major social transformation took place during the period when China was under the rule of the Wei, Jin, and Southern and Northern dynasties. This period provided a space for new thinking to develop. The Wei Jin calligraphic style, represented by Wang Shizhi, the realistic painting style, represented by Gu Kaizhi, the pastoral poetry, represented by Tao Yuanming, and the Buddhist statue sculptures, represented by the Mogao grottos, all appeared in this period. During this great time, the openness and tolerance of Chinese culture were fully displayed. Art forms such as sculpture, painting, and calligraphy entered a new phase of prosperity, completing an historical leap from the time when they were used as simply practical means to communicate to a time when they were used to express people's inner feelings. During this period, the cohesive force of the Chinese nation once more testified to its might. The fusion and collision of the cultures of different ethnic groups laid a solid foundation for the coming of a prosperous age in China under the rule of the Sui and Tang dynasties.
During this period, Chinese culture achieved unprecedented levels of openness and tolerance. Art forms such as sculpture, painting, and calligraphy achieved a historic advance in that they were no longer used pragmatically as a means of communication. Instead, the artist was able to express his inner feelings. This was also a period when the Chinese nation was once again acting as a cohesive force. The cultures of different ethnic groups, through their fusion, laid a solid foundation for a future golden age in China under the Sui and Tang dynasties. And thank you for staying with us on today's New Frontiers. I'm Qi Xiaojun from CCTV International. Bye for now.